I used to have a handheld GMRS radio, but recently I installed a mobile unit into my Bronco, and I'm going to tell you the reasons right after this. Hi, this is Brian from Northwest Bronco. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about GMRS radios. Now make sure that you stay all the way to the end of this video because I'm going to show you a little trick on installing a microphone in one of these Broncos. Now most people that go off-road have one of these radios and they either have a handheld or they have a unit built into their vehicles. Today I'm going to be talking specifically about the Bronco because this is the vehicle I installed one in. But I'm going to tell you some of the problems I had with having a handheld. Now, if any of you follow my channel for any length of time, you know that I'm mostly a solo traveler. I usually go out alone, so I don't really need one of these except for emergencies, so I don't really use it. But I always had one of these handheld radios instead of one built into the Bronco because I just wanted to save the money, and I also didn't want give someone a reason to break into my Bronco and steal something. So I would always just take this out and use it when I went off-road. Now, recently I went on my first trip with other people, and that was the 100 vehicle convoy. That video is down below in my video pile. Where it was the High Desert Overland meetup, and everyone there had some kind of a GMRS radio, and we had 100 vehicles lined up down the desert going a long way for hours, and everyone was talking, but I had a little problem with this radio. Now, communication wasn't the problem with this radio. The problem I had with this radio was the battery life. We were, I think, driving for about 4 or 5 hours in that convoy, and about an hour and a half to 2 hours into it, I lost my comms. And when you start losing your comms, the radio will start chirping you, telling you that you have a low battery. I thought there's no way that I'm out of battery already, but I was. Luckily, I did have the plug-in unit where you can plug it into your vehicle to charge it. So I went ahead and reached back and I grabbed the charger and I plugged it in and plugged it into the Bronco. And I thought, okay, I should be good to go for the rest of the trip. That turned out to be not true because the charger coming from the Bronco into this radio was not keeping up with the demand of the radio being on and me trying to talk on it. It would be going lower more than it was charging. So to give you an example of what would happen is the radio would be chirping, telling me it had a low battery. So what I would have to do is shut the radio off completely, let it charge for about a minute or two, turn it back on, hear what was going on, and then turn it back off again and just repeat that cycle for the last like 2 hours of the trip. Now, most recently, I went out on a trip with Nate from Off Grid Recon. Check out his channel if you get a chance. He has a Gladiator, and we went out and did some exploring out in the desert. And once again, I had the exact same problem. So when it came to research on deciding what I wanted to do to install a GMRS radio in my Bronco, I found, I think it's Trail Recon put one into his Bronco. And what I did was it was a really convenient video because he did step-by-step how he installed it, and then he put all the supplies listed in the description of his video, and I just ordered everything he had in the description and went ahead and did my install. Now, just like he had, I'm going to go ahead and put the same descriptions for each item I got in this video description so you can find all these parts. I did notice a couple things that were wrong with, just not wrong, but they didn't work with my Bronco. They may have worked for his. And that's more specifically regarding the microphone install. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and do a walk around. I'm not gonna show you how I installed it. I'm just gonna show you the parts and pieces to get a GMRS radio installed in your Bronco, and also a really creative way to mount your microphone that I've never seen before, but works best for me. All right, so I should probably mention that the system that we're gonna be talking about today is a Midland radio. Now, the Midland radio has two different levels of power. It has like an average power and then has a high power. I went with the average power because honestly, I didn't know the high power one existed, but this whole package here seemed like a pretty reasonable setup to me. All right, so the first thing we're gonna talk about here is this whole antenna setup. Now, the mount that I'm using here is a Diamond K400S NMO lip mount antenna. Now, this is antenna holder. Now, this installs really easily, no drilling. It's just a little plate on the bottom, and it has some padding so you don't scratch your paint. And you just put it on there, and it just sandwiches the lip of your hood, and it installs really nicely. And it does swivel this way and that way so that you can get it nice and straight. And it also has a wire that is perfectly set up to run from this point of your Bronco all the way around to your driver's side and all the way back to the radio, which we're going to talk about in a minute where I have that mounted. So the wire is the perfect length. Now the little stubby antenna you see here, this is a Midland MXTA25 3DM 3dB gain ghost antenna. Now this is 3.5 inches tall. Now for obvious reasons, you want to go with a shorter antenna just because it's not going to snag on stuff. Plus, if I wanted to, I can just go ahead and remove this antenna completely to make sure no one steals it. And I'm going to show you the cap here that I have to put on here to make sure this stays nice and covered up. So if you do decide to run without your antenna because you're afraid of someone unscrewing it and stealing it, you can buy these little caps separately, and I'm going to put a link below where you can get these in my description to this video. It's a plastic cap, and it just screws right on there, like that. And it keeps everything nice and sealed up on here, and it protects it from the weather. Now, in case you're wondering what that cap was that I just showed you, it's an Anenia NMO antenna mount cap with an O-ring seal dust weather rain cover. Whew, yeah, and it comes in a 2-pack because they are plastic. In case one breaks, you have another one as a backup. So let's talk a little bit about the install of the radio itself. The radio that I chose to go with was the Midland MXT275 Micro Mobile GMRS radio. That's a 15-watt radio. And it's a perfect size to fit in your glove box. So all I did to mount it was I just put a couple pieces of a Velcro in here so I can still take it on and off if I want to, but it ends up being the perfect size for your glove box. So let's talk a little bit about why I chose this radio. I picked this radio because I knew I was going to hide this main component here somewhere, and I'm not going to be able to see it, so I didn't want any controls on this component. Instead, I wanted them all in the microphone, so this is the only thing you see. Now, that was one big advantage because it allows me to take this microphone out and I can unscrew that antenna and throw it all in my glove box, and there's nothing really for anyone to see and hear to steal, and it allows me to lock up my antenna in here so they can't just come up to the car and unscrew it. So that was kind of why I chose this entire setup. All right, so now let's talk about the thing that I wanted you guys to hold out for when watching this video, and that is mounting this microphone. Now, the magnetic mount that I use, which is this mount here, is a magnetic mount from Whiz Gear Stick-On. It comes in a 2-pack and has everything you need to be able to modify the back of your microphone to be able to stick to this magnetic pad. Now this is a adjustable, it goes up and down, a little mount here, and most people are trying to stick them onto here because they come with double-sided tape, and you're supposed to stick it on here and then have your microphone mounted here. The problem I was running into was that anytime it got hot out, it would just kind of peel off the dash. No matter what I did, I couldn't get it to stick because, as you can see, if it's on there, it's just constantly pulling down and away, and there's no way I could get it to stick right here. So finally I gave up on the whole thing and made my own solution. All right, so let's talk about the solution here. Because I couldn't get it to stick up here, I decided I'm going to mount it down here. Now, I wanted to use screws because I really did not want this falling off, because that's really annoying when things are falling off your car while you're off-road. So what I ended up doing was just putting 3 screws. I just drilled a couple holes in the actual plastic mount and drilled up through the dash. Now, most people may be like, I don't want to drill a hole in my Bronco dash. I don't blame you. I'm the exact same way you are. But there's really no other way to do this unless you had some clamp-on thing somewhere over here, which I didn't want. I wanted a nice clean mount. And under here, no one's going to see these holes down here anyway. So drill a couple holes in the mount and actually just put a couple screws in there, 3 screws to be exact, and it holds this thing nicely. And I've had no problems with this microphone falling off since. So here's a little bonus tip. When you get that whole kit from this mount, it does come with the magnetic backings. Now this magnetic backing is supposed to stick on the back of the microphone, but it doesn't stick very well. I had problems with this backing coming off. So just take a little tiny screw and put it in there to hold this backing on. And it's the screw that comes in the microphone. This is actually the screw that holds on the factory clip. And I just basically drilled a hole in the magnet, put a little screw in there, and you can see it's kind of indented a little bit, so it really doesn't get in the way of the mount. Okay, I went ahead and popped the hood for you guys because I'm going to show you the reason why you want to run that wire from this antenna all the way through to the driver's side and back to the passenger side. But I figured while I had the hood up, I might as well also show you kind of how this antenna mount mounts. All it is it just kind of slides over the lip here and has a little piece of aluminum here. And it's just 4 set screws, and you just tighten them up and it just sandwiches the whole antenna mount onto the lip of your hood. Then it comes with these little clips here that you can stick on to help kind of guide your wire where you want it to go. Pretty slick. Okay, talk a little bit about the wiring and wiring the antenna. We're gonna go through this briefly under the hood here. So you can see here, I wired mine directly to the battery. I didn't wire it to the auxiliary switches because I just honestly didn't have a need to turn it on and off manually. So it just went directly to the battery. And the reason why you run that antenna wire from the antenna all the way through here and then back to your radio again is because right down in here, right there is a rubber grommet that you slice a little slit in, and you can put your wires through there, and that's the only place you can run them through without drilling a hole that I know of. So that's why you have to run the wire, which is perfectly length from that mount, here, down through there, and then behind your dash, back to your radio, and then it goes up over the top of your glove box. But you can see that grommet back there. You just take a little razor blade and just slit a little slit in it, pop it right through. So hopefully this video helped you out. If it did, please give it a like and subscribe for more content. If you have any questions about your GMRS radio install, please put it in the comments below. I'd be happy to get back with you. If I don't, somebody else I'm sure is going to answer your question. But if you do like overland shirts and apparel, visit my store. Shirts like these are there. They're really kind of fun. And you can find a link to my store under the header of my channel, or just click about and scan down. You'll see a link down there. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and take off, and I do have a trip coming up here in 2 days. It's going to be a 2-night trip with my son where we're going to go into the desert and explore a bunch of stuff. I'm going to videotape that, so keep an eye out for that video. I'll see you next time.